Get out!
Please. My son told me to come here.
Your son? No one comes to the Grand Bellman smelling like a wet dog.
Rain pooling at his worn shoes.
I just need to wait.
Go away! You stinking old dog. You're so stubborn! This hotel isn't for animals!
He kicked the 82-year-old toward the glass doors. Oliver's knee buckled on the wet steps.
Crawl back to whatever hole you came from. You stinking allowed to beg here.
Rain hammered his thin coat. Oliver sat on cold concrete, alone, crying. But just minutes later, a black car pulled up in front of this door, and when the man leading it spoke, everyone was stunned. This is the story of Oliver Irving and the night that changed the Grand Belmont forever. 3 hours earlier, Oliver Irving's phone had rung for the first time in months. He was sitting in his kitchen, a small, quiet room in a small, quiet house at the edge of a town most people drove through without stopping. The wallpaper was peeling. The faucet dripped. A framed photo of a young boy in a graduation cap sat on the counter, faded by years of sunlight. The chair across from him had been empty for 2 years. "Dad?" Oliver's hand froze on the receiver. He hadn't heard that voice since Nathan left for the overseas expansion. 2 years. No visits. A few texts that got shorter every month. "Nathan? Is that you?" "It's me, Dad. I'm flying into the city tonight. I want to see you." Oliver pressed the phone against his ear like it might disappear. "Where?" "The Grand Belmont, downtown. I'll be there at 7. Just come to the lobby and wait for me. I'll take care of everything." Oliver didn't ask questions. He didn't ask why now, or why there, or why 2 years of silence ended with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. He just said, "I'll be there." He hung up and sat still for a long time. His fingers rested on the table where Nathan used to do his homework. Then he moved. He opened the closet and pulled out his only suit. Dark blue, 20 years old, pressed and hanging in dry cleaner's plastic since his wife's funeral. He put it on slowly. The sleeves were a little short now, the shoulders a little loose, but it was the best thing he owned, and his son was waiting. He took the bus. 4 hours, 2 transfers. He held a small canvas bag on his lap the entire ride. Inside was a wooden box he'd carved himself, oak, sanded smooth, hinged with tiny brass clasps. Inside the box sat a pocket watch, his own father's, the only thing passed down through 3 generations of Irving men. He'd planned to give it to Nathan someday. Today felt like the day. The bus dropped him 6 blocks from the Grand Belmont. By the time he reached the entrance, the sky had opened. Rain came down in sheets. His old suit soaked through in seconds. His shoes squished against the sidewalk. He pushed through the glass doors, dripping, breathless, smiling. He had no idea what was waiting for him inside. Oliver stepped into the Grand Belmont lobby and stopped breathing. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings 3 stories high. The floor was white marble, polished to a mirror finish. A grand staircase curved upward behind the front desk, flanked by columns wrapped in gold leaf. The air smelled like fresh orchids and expensive perfume. Soft piano music floated from somewhere Oliver couldn't see. He had never been inside a place like this. He stood near the entrance, dripping. A small puddle formed around his shoes. Guests glanced at him and looked away. A woman in heels stepped wide around his wet footprints without breaking her conversation. A bellhop carrying Louis Vuitton luggage slowed, stared, then kept walking. Oliver wiped his face with the back of his hand. He looked around for Nathan, but the lobby was filled with strangers. Women in silk dresses, men in tailored coats, luggage that probably cost more than his house. He approached the front desk slowly, each step leaving a dark, wet print on the marble. A young woman looked up. Her name tag read Cassandra Holt. She smiled, the kind of smile that hadn't been trained out of her yet. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" "My son told me to meet him here," Oliver said. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "His name is Nathan. Nathan Irving. He said 7 o'clock. Cassandra's fingers moved across her keyboard. Something flickered across her face. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed at the screen. She opened her mouth to speak. A voice cut through the lobby like a blade. "What is this?" Derek Whitfield appeared from behind the concierge station. He was tall, sharp-jawed, wearing a suit that cost more than Oliver's bus fare for a year. A gold pin on his lapel read General Manager. His eyes moved over Oliver the way someone inspects a stain on new carpet. "Sir, this gentleman says he's waiting for—" Cassandra began. "I can see what he is." Derek stepped closer. The smile on his face wasn't a smile. It was a performance. "And what I see is a dripping, filthy old man stinking up my lobby." Oliver flinched. The words landed like a slap. I'm waiting for my son," he said softly. "Your son." Derek crossed his arms and tilted his head, the way a teacher looks at a child who told an obvious lie. "Let me guess. Your son is a guest here? At the Grand Belmont? The hotel where a single night costs more than your entire Social Security check?" Two guests at the nearby seating area stopped their conversation. A man in a gray blazer lowered his newspaper to watch. "He told me to wait in the lobby," Oliver said. "He's coming at 7. Do you have a reservation confirmation? A booking number? An email? Anything at all?" Oliver reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his old phone. The screen was cracked down the middle. He held it up with shaking hands. "He sent me a message. Right here. It says, 'I'm not touching that thing.'" Derek waved it away like it carried disease. "No confirmation, no reservation, no entry. That's the policy." "But if you just look at the message—" "I said no." Derek's voice hardened. He turned slightly toward the lobby, not to address anyone directly, but to make sure everyone could hear. "We get this every week. Someone wanders in off the street with a sob story. I'm meeting someone important. My son works here. Next thing you know, they're sleeping in the restroom or stealing silverware." He looked back at Oliver. "Which one are you? The bathroom sleeper or the silverware thief?" A woman in a red dress, Victoria Sloan, laughed from her seat near the fireplace. She was holding a champagne glass in one hand and her phone in the other. "Oh my God," she said to her companion, loud enough for the lobby to hear. "Is this actually happening?" She raised her phone and started recording. Oliver's face burned. He looked down at his shoes, old brown leather, cracked at the toe, dark with rain. A lifetime ago, he'd worn them to church on Sundays. Now they were soaked and shapeless. "Sir, I don't want any trouble," Oliver said. He could hear the tremor in his own voice and hated it. "Can I just sit somewhere and wait? Even by the door. I won't bother anyone. I'll be quiet." "Sit?" Derek's eyebrows shot up. He looked around the lobby as if Oliver had asked something absurd. "You want to sit in my lobby? In my chairs? Looking like that? Smelling like that?" He gestured at Oliver's soaked suit, the puddle spreading beneath him, the canvas bag clutched against his chest. "This isn't a bus station. This isn't a shelter. This is the Grand Belmont." "Please," Oliver's voice cracked. "It's pouring outside. I'm 82 years old. I just need 20 minutes. What you need is to leave. Immediately." Derek turned and began to walk away, as if the conversation had been settled by gravity. "Mr. Whitfield." Cassandra's voice was small but clear. Derek stopped. "Mr. Whitfield, I found something in the system. The name Irving. It's flagged in our VIP. Did I ask you?" Derek turned slowly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The temperature around him dropped 10 degrees. "One more word, Cassandra. One more word, and you can pack your things and join him out in the rain. Are we clear?" Cassandra's mouth closed. Her fingers gripped the edge of the marble counter so hard her knuckles went white. She blinked fast, twice, and looked down. Oliver stood alone in the center of the lobby. Every face was turned toward him. Some looked away when he met their eyes. Some watched with the blank curiosity of people observing something unpleasant that had nothing to do with them. The man with the newspaper folded it shut and studied his drink. A couple near the elevator whispered to each other and moved further away, as if poverty were contagious. Victoria was still filming. She angled her phone for a better shot. Her companion leaned in and whispered something. They both laughed. Not a single person moved to help. Derek walked back toward Oliver. He stopped close, too close. Oliver could smell his cologne, sharp and expensive, cutting through the damp wool of his own suit. "You know what your problem is?" Derek said quietly. His voice was almost conversational, almost friendly, which made it worse. "People like you always think you belong in places you don't. You show up looking like the bottom of someone's shoe and expect us to roll out the red carpet. You track your mess across our floors and then act surprised when someone asks you to leave." Oliver said nothing. His jaw tightened. "You don't belong here," Derek said. "Your son, if he even exists, doesn't belong here. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner we can all go back to our evening." "My son is coming," Oliver whispered. "He told me. 7 o'clock. Derek stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed, the sigh of a man who had been patient beyond reason, and snapped his fingers twice. Grant Pearson appeared from the side corridor, head of security, large, thick-necked, expressionless. He walked toward Oliver with the steady pace of a man who had removed people before and felt nothing about it. "Sir, you need to come with me," Grant said. "Please." Oliver looked from Grant to Derek to Cassandra. His eyes were wet. "Please, he's coming. He said 7 o'clock. It's only 6:40. 6:40 and you've already been a problem for 15 minutes, Derek said. "I shudder to think what you'd be by 7. Grant took Oliver's arm, not gently. Oliver's canvas bag slipped from his shoulder. He grabbed for it, felt the wooden box shift inside, but Grant was already steering him toward the glass doors. "Wait, my bag." "Keep moving." "I need my bag. There's something inside for my—" "I said move." Oliver clutched the bag against his chest with his free arm. Grant's grip tightened on the other. They reached the doors. Grant pushed them open with his shoulder. The sound of rain crashed into the lobby like an accusation. Oliver tried to hold the door frame. His wet fingers slipped off the brass handle. Grant pushed him through. Oliver stumbled down the front steps. His right knee, the bad one, the one that had been grinding since the 4-hour bus ride, buckled on the second step. He went down hard. His left palm slapped the wet concrete. His right hand held the canvas bag above the ground by instinct, keeping it dry, protecting the box inside. He didn't get up right away. He sat on the bottom step, rain hammering his back, and pressed his hand against his knee. The pain was sharp, then dull, then a deep, constant ache that matched his heartbeat. His suit was ruined. The blue fabric had turned black with water. His shoes were soaked through to his socks. Water ran down his face, and he couldn't tell anymore which drops were rain and which ones weren't. Behind the glass doors, Derek straightened his tie. He smoothed the front of his jacket and turned to the lobby. He raised his voice slightly. Not shouting, just projecting, the way a host addresses a dinner party after a minor inconvenience. "Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize for the disturbance. The Grand Belmont maintains the highest standards for our valued guests, and I assure you that situation has been handled appropriately." A smattering of relieved murmurs. The man with the newspaper reopened it. The couple near the elevator pressed the button again. Victoria typed a caption on her video. "You can't make this stuff up," added 3 laughing emojis, and hit post. The lobby returned to normal in under a minute. The piano music continued. The orchids kept their scent. Oliver Irving had been erased from the room as thoroughly as if he had never existed. Derek walked back to the front desk. He looked at Cassandra, who was standing very still with tears running silently down her cheeks. "Clean up the water he tracked in," Derek said. "Use the good towels. And Cassandra, don't you ever contradict me in front of guests again. Next time I won't give you a warning." Cassandra nodded. She picked up a white towel from under the counter, knelt on the marble floor, and began wiping away Oliver's footprints, one by one, as if they had never been there. Outside, Oliver sat in the rain. His phone was in his coat pocket. He pulled it out with a trembling hand. The screen was fogged with moisture. He wiped it on his sleeve, his wet sleeve, which only made it worse. He pressed Nathan's number with his thumb. The screen barely responded. It rang and rang and rang. Voicemail. "Nathan." Oliver's voice broke on the first syllable. "I'm here. I'm at the hotel. They told me to leave. I'm outside, on the steps. It's raining. I'm waiting for you, son." He paused, swallowed. "Please come. Please." He hung up. He looked at the phone screen through the water. 6:43. 17 minutes until 7. He pressed the canvas bag tighter against his chest. Inside, the wooden box was still dry. Inside the box, the pocket watch, 3 generations old, was still ticking. He sat in the rain and waited for his son. The rain didn't let up. Oliver sat on the bottom step of the Grand Belmont, his back against the stone railing, his canvas bag pressed against his stomach. Water ran off the awning above in thick sheets, but the awning didn't extend far enough. He was fully exposed. Every few seconds, a gust of wind drove the rain sideways into his face. His knee throbbed. He looked down at it. The fabric of his suit pants was torn at the right knee, and beneath it, a dark scrape had already started to swell. He touched it gently and winced. A thin line of blood mixed with rainwater and ran down his shin. 6:45. 15 minutes. He tried Nathan's number again. The phone screen flickered. His wet thumb left a smear across the cracked glass. The call connected, then dropped. No signal. He tried again. Same result. The battery icon blinked red. 8%. He held the phone against his chest, sheltering it from the rain with both hands, the way a man holds a candle in the wind. Inside the lobby, the world continued without him. He could see it through the glass doors. The warm, golden light, the dry marble floor, the people moving easily from one beautiful space to another. A couple laughed near the bar. A child in a pressed white shirt ran across the lobby and was scooped up by a smiling father. A waiter carried a silver tray of champagne flutes past the fireplace. Oliver watched the father lift the child. He watched the boy wrap his arms around his father's neck. He remembered Nathan at that age, small enough to carry, light enough to hold with one arm while he cooked dinner with the other. Nathan used to press his face into Oliver's shoulder and fall asleep there, trusting completely that he would never be dropped. He looked away. Through the glass, he could see Derek at the front desk, leaning against the counter, talking to a guest with the relaxed posture of a man whose evening had gone exactly as planned. Derek laughed at something. He adjusted his cufflinks. He didn't look toward the door. Not once. Cassandra was still behind the desk. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't talking. She stood with her hands flat on the counter, staring at her screen. Every few seconds, her eyes moved toward the glass doors, toward Oliver, and then back. Her jaw was tight. Her shoulders were rigid. She wanted to do something. Oliver could see it in the way she kept glancing at the door, the way her fingers twitched toward the phone on her desk. But Derek was 3 feet away, and his warning had been clear. Victoria Sloan was on her phone near the fireplace. She had posted the video 5 minutes ago. Now she was reading the comments, tilting her screen toward her companion, both of them laughing. "Already 200 views," she said. "People are going wild." She typed a follow-up. "Grand Belmont lobby drama. Wait for it." She added a skull emoji and hit post. A young bellhop, barely out of his teens, name tag reading Tommy Wells, appeared at the side entrance. He was carrying a tray of used glasses back to the kitchen. He stopped when he saw Oliver through the glass. Tommy looked left, then right. Derek was facing the other direction, deep in conversation. Tommy set the tray down on a luggage cart, disappeared into the service corridor, and came back 60 seconds later with a white paper cup. Steam rose from the top. He pushed open the side door quietly and walked down the steps. "Sir?" Oliver looked up. Rain ran into his eyes. "I brought you some tea," Tommy said. He held out the cup. It's hot. Careful. Oliver stared at the cup for a moment. Then he reached for it with both hands. His fingers were shaking, from cold, from everything, and Tommy held the cup steady until Oliver had a grip. "Thank you," Oliver said. His voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you, son." Tommy nodded. He opened his mouth to say something else, but the side door slammed open behind him. "Wells." Derek stood in the doorway, backlit by the lobby's golden glow. His face was calm. His voice was not. "What are you doing?" Tommy straightened. "He's an old man, sir. He's freezing. You just what? I gave a very clear instruction. Did you not hear it, or did you decide it didn't apply to you?" "Mr. Whitfield, he's 82 years old. It's 40 degrees and raining. He could get a bus home. That's what he could get." Derek stepped down one step. "If I catch anyone else bringing comfort to that man, tea, water, a blanket, a kind word, they're terminated. No warning, no appeal. Am I understood?" Tommy didn't move. "Am I understood, Wells?" Tommy looked at Oliver. Oliver looked at Tommy. The old man gave the smallest shake of his head. Don't lose your job for me." Tommy swallowed hard. He turned and walked back up the steps, past Derek, and into the lobby. His hands were fists at his sides. Derek looked down at Oliver. Rain spattered the bottom of his polished shoes. "You're still here," Derek said. It wasn't a question. "My son is coming." "Your son is not coming. No one is coming for you. And if you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police. I'll tell them you were trespassing and harassing our guests. They'll believe me." He paused. They always do. He turned and went back inside. The door closed with a heavy click. Oliver sat alone again. The tea was still warm in his hands. He took a sip. It was cheap tea, the kind they served in the staff kitchen, not the kind they poured for guests. It was the best thing he had tasted all day. He set the cup down carefully on the step beside him. He unzipped his canvas bag and pulled out the wooden box. It was still dry. The bag's thick fabric had done its job. He opened the brass clasp and looked inside. The pocket watch lay on a bed of blue velvet. Oliver had cut and fitted the velvet himself. The watch was old, older than Oliver, older than his father. The brass casing was worn smooth by generations of thumbs. The face was ivory, the numbers Roman, the second hand still sweeping its tiny circle. His father had given it to him on his 21st birthday. "This is what Irving men do," his father had said. "We pass things down. We build things that last. We hold on." Oliver had planned to give it to Nathan on his 21st birthday. But Nathan had been in college then, busy, distracted, building a future Oliver could barely understand. There was never a right moment. Then Nathan graduated. Then he started his company. Then the company became something enormous. And somewhere in that explosion of success, the quiet moments between a father and son had been replaced by voicemails and missed calls and text messages that said, "Soon, Dad. Soon." Oliver closed the box. He held it against his chest. The brass clasp pressed cold against his collarbone. "I'm still here, Nathan," he said quietly to the rain. "I'm still waiting." His phone buzzed once, the death rattle of a battery giving up. The screen flickered, dimmed, and went black. He was completely alone now. No phone, no way to call, no way to know if Nathan was 5 minutes away or not coming at all. Just an old man in the rain with a wooden box and a cup of tea that was getting cold. Through the glass doors, the lobby glowed like a world he wasn't allowed to enter. At the far end of the street, barely visible through the curtain of rain, headlights appeared. 3 sets of them, moving in a slow, deliberate formation. Black vehicles, tinted windows. Derek didn't notice. He was standing near the lobby bar, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a glass panel, laughing at something a guest had said. The headlights grew closer. The 3 black Escalades pulled up to the Grand Belmont entrance in a slow, precise line. Their headlights cut through the rain like searchlights. The engines idled in unison. a low, heavy rumble that vibrated through the wet concrete. The lobby noticed before Derek did. A doorman straightened his jacket. A valet jogged toward the curb. Two bellhops appeared from nowhere, adjusting their gloves. This was the kind of arrival that meant money, real money, and everyone on staff could feel it. Derek looked up from the bar. He set down his drink, buttoned his jacket, and walked briskly toward the entrance. His shoes clicked on the marble. His smile was already in place, the wide, practiced smile he reserved for guests whose net worth exceeded 7 figures. "VIP arrival," he murmured to Grant as he passed. "Look sharp." He reached the glass doors just as the rear door of the middle escalade opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, mid-40s, black. He wore a charcoal gray suit that fit like it had been sewn onto his body. No tie. A watch on his left wrist that caught the light even through the rain. The kind of watch that didn't have a price tag because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. 2 men in dark suits stepped out behind him. Security, clearly. Followed by an older man in a navy overcoat carrying a leather portfolio. Raymond Cole, CFO. His face was set in the permanent expression of someone who managed billions and slept 4 hours a night. Nathan Irving stood in the rain for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, his eyes found Oliver. The old man was sitting on the bottom step, 10 feet to the right of the entrance, soaked, shivering, his torn suit clinging to his thin frame. A paper cup of cold tea beside him, a canvas bag clutched to his chest. His head was down. He hadn't seen the cars arrive. Nathan's face changed. It didn't collapse. It didn't crumble. It went through something worse. A slow, precise sequence of recognition, confusion, disbelief, and then a kind of fury that starts in the chest and rises without sound. He walked past the valet, past the doorman, past the bellhops reaching for luggage that he didn't acknowledge. He walked straight to the bottom step and dropped to his knees on the wet concrete. "Dad?" Oliver looked up. His eyes were red and swollen. Rain ran down his face. For a moment, he didn't seem to understand what he was seeing, as if his mind had already accepted that Nathan wasn't coming, and now it refused to believe the opposite. "Dad, it's me. It's Nathan." Oliver's mouth opened. No sound came out. Then his hands, still clutching the canvas bag, began to shake. Not the small tremor from before, a deep, full-body trembling that started in his fingers and moved through his arms and into his shoulders. "Nathan?" His voice cracked in the middle of the word. "You came? You really came?" "I'm here, Dad. I'm right here." Nathan pulled off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Oliver's shoulders. The rain soaked through his white shirt in seconds. He didn't notice. He didn't care. He was looking at Oliver's knee, the torn fabric, the dark bruise, the dried blood mixed with rainwater running down his shin. "What happened?" Nathan's voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that comes right before something breaks. "Who did this to you?" "They said I couldn't wait inside." Oliver's words came out in pieces, between breaths, between sobs he was trying to hold back. "They said no one was coming for me. They pushed me out. I fell on the steps." Nathan closed his eyes. His jaw tightened so hard the muscle in his cheek jumped. His hand gripped Oliver's shoulder, not hard, but firm, like he was anchoring himself to keep from standing up and walking inside too fast. "They said I didn't belong here," Oliver whispered. "They said people like me don't have sons at the Grand Belmont." Nathan opened his eyes. He put both hands on his father's face, gently, the way you hold something precious, something you almost lost, and looked at him. "You belong everywhere I am," Nathan said. "Everywhere. Do you understand me?" Oliver nodded. Tears ran down his face, mixing with the rain, running over Nathan's fingers. Nathan helped his father stand. Oliver winced. His knee buckled, and Nathan caught him, one arm around his back, holding him steady. Raymond Cole appeared with an umbrella. One of the security men took Oliver's canvas bag carefully, as if he'd been told it contained something irreplaceable. They walked toward the entrance. Nathan held the door open for his father. Oliver stepped into the lobby. The lobby went silent, not gradually, not in waves, all at once, as if someone had pressed mute on the entire building. The piano stopped. Conversations stopped. Glasses stopped clinking. Even the elevator chime seemed to hold its breath. Every eye in the room locked onto the same image, a soaking wet billionaire holding up a trembling 82-year-old man in a ruined suit. Derek Whitfield was already moving forward. His VIP smile was locked in place. His hand was extended. He had no idea what he was walking into. "Welcome to the Grand Belmont, sir," Derek said, his voice polished and warm. "I'm Derek Whitfield, general manager. It's an absolute pleasure to—" Stop. Nathan's voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The word landed in the silent lobby like a stone dropped into still water. Derek's hand hung in the air. His smile froze. Nathan looked at him. The look lasted 3 full seconds. In a lobby this quiet, 3 seconds felt like a year. "Do you know who I am?" Nathan said. Sir, I'd be happy to." "My name is Nathan Irving." He paused to let the name settle into every corner of the room. "I own this hotel. I own every hotel in the Grand Belmont chain, all 34 of them. The one in Chicago, the one in Miami, the one in London, this one. I own the floor you're standing on. I own the desk behind you. I own the name on the building outside." Derek's face lost its color, not slowly, all at once, like a screen switching off. His extended hand dropped to his side, and that man, Nathan pointed to Oliver, who was standing beside him, still trembling, Nathan's jacket draped over his shoulders, rainwater pooling at his feet. "That man you dragged out of this lobby. That man you threw into the rain. That man whose knee is bleeding because your security guard pushed him down the steps of my hotel." Nathan stepped closer. His voice dropped to a register that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "That man is my father." The words hit the lobby like a shockwave. Oliver heard them. He looked at Nathan, not with pride, not with triumph, with something quieter. Relief. The relief of a man who had spent an hour in the rain being told he didn't matter, now hearing his own son say, in front of everyone, that he did. Victoria Sloane's champagne glass slipped in her hand. She caught it, but the champagne splashed onto her red dress. She didn't notice. She was staring at Nathan with her mouth open, her phone still in her other hand, the phone that had recorded and posted Oliver's humiliation 20 minutes ago. Grant Pearson, who had physically removed Oliver from the building, took 2 steps backward. His face was gray. Cassandra Holt stood behind the front desk. Her hands were still gripping the counter, but she wasn't crying anymore. She was watching Derek, and on her face was something that looked like the first breath after being held underwater. Derek's mouth moved. No sound came out. He tried again. "Mr. Irving, Sir, I had no idea. If I had known—" "If you had known." Nathan repeated the words slowly, tasting each one. "If you had known he was my father, you would have treated him differently. That's what you're telling me. That's your defense." Derek said nothing. "So it's not about how you treat people," Nathan said. "It's about who you think they are." Raymond Cole stepped forward, leather portfolio open. "Mr. Irving, I've already requested the security footage from the last 90 minutes. It's being pulled to the main display now." Nathan nodded without looking away from Derek. "Good. I want every second, every camera angle, and I want the entire staff assembled in this lobby in 10 minutes. He turned to Oliver. The fury drained from his face and was replaced by something softer, something broken and tender. "Come sit down, Dad," Nathan said quietly. "You're not standing in the rain anymore." He guided Oliver to the nearest chair, a deep leather armchair by the fireplace, the kind of chair that guests sank into with cocktails and self-satisfaction. Oliver sat down slowly. His wetsuit left a dark stain on the cream leather. He didn't apologize for it. Nathan didn't want him to. Nathan knelt beside the chair and held his father's hand. Oliver gripped back. Neither of them let go. Bro, the silence. Derek went from, "Welcome, sir," to, "I'm losing everything," in 3 seconds. And he said, "If I had known." That's not an apology. That's an admission. He treats people like garbage unless he knows their net worth. Keep watching. Nathan's not done. 10 minutes later, the lobby of the Grand Belmont looked like a courtroom. Every staff member on shift stood in 2 rows near the grand staircase, hands clasped. No one spoke. The guests hadn't left. Something was happening that was bigger than dinner reservations, and they knew it. They lined the edges of the lobby, watching. Victoria Sloan had put her phone away. For the first time all evening, she wasn't recording. The large display screen behind the front desk flickered on. Security footage appeared in crisp, high-definition color. Time-stamped, multi-angle. Raymond Cole pressed play. The lobby watched itself. They watched Derek call Oliver a filthy vagrant. They watched him wave away the old man's phone and mock his suit, his shoes, his smell. They watched Cassandra try to speak, and Derek silence her with a threat. They watched Grant take Oliver's arm. They watched the old man stumble through the glass doors, his knee hitting the concrete. They watched him sit in the rain, alone, calling his son on a dying phone. They watched Derek straighten his tie and apologize to the lobby for the disturbance. They watched Cassandra kneel on the floor and wipe away Oliver's footprints. The footage ended. The screen went dark. The silence that followed was the silence of people who had just seen something they couldn't unsee and knew they had been part of it. Nathan stood in front of the screen. He turned to Derek. Derek was standing at the end of the staff line, separated slightly from the others, as if proximity to him had become contagious. His face was the color of wet paper. The gold general manager pin on his lapel caught the chandelier light, and for the first time, it looked like something that didn't belong on him. "Mr. Whitfield," Nathan said, "tell me, what exactly did my father do wrong tonight?" "Mr. Irving, there was a misunderstanding. I was following standard protocol." He asked to wait for his son, in a chair, during a rainstorm. Nathan took one step closer. "Which part of that required you to call him filthy? Which part required you to threaten your staff for showing him kindness? Which part of your protocol says you kick an 82-year-old man into the rain?" Derek said nothing. "You didn't follow a policy. You made a judgment. You looked at my father, his age, his clothes, his skin, and you decided he was worthless." Nathan's voice hardened. "And then you made sure everyone in this building agreed with you, or stayed silent." The lobby held its breath. "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out through the same door you pushed my father through. No reference, no severance. And if my legal team determines your conduct violated federal anti-discrimination statutes, and I believe it did, you will hear from them." Derek reached for his lapel pin with trembling fingers. He unpinned it slowly and held it in his palm like a man letting go of the last thing that defined him. Grant Pearson stepped forward. "Mr. Irving, I was following direct orders. I should have refused. I take full responsibility. You physically removed an elderly man from this building. You pushed him down wet steps. He could have broken his hip." Nathan paused. "You're suspended without pay. An internal investigation will determine what comes next." Grant nodded once and stepped back with his eyes on the floor. Nathan turned to Victoria. "You recorded my father's humiliation and posted it for entertainment. My legal team will need that video as evidence, and you are permanently banned from every Grand Belmont property, all 34. Victoria picked up her bag and walked toward the elevator without a word. Nathan turned to Cassandra. "You tried to stop this. You found my father's name in the VIP system. Your manager threatened to fire you for speaking up." He paused. "You're the only person in this building who tried to do the right thing when it was dangerous. Effective tonight, you're acting general manager." Cassandra pressed her hand to her mouth. She nodded, unable to speak. "Tommy Wells." Tommy stepped forward from the second row, still in his bellhop uniform. "You brought my father tea. You were told you'd be fired for it. You did it anyway." Nathan extended his hand. "I'm enrolling you in the Grand Belmont Management Training Program. Full scholarship." Tommy shook his hand. His eyes were bright. Nathan walked back to Oliver. The old man was still sitting in the leather armchair, watching everything. His canvas bag was on his lap. Nathan knelt beside the chair. Oliver reached into the bag and opened the wooden box. The pocket watch lay on its bed of blue velvet, still ticking. "I made this box for you," Oliver said, "and this watch was your grandfather's. I've been carrying it for years, waiting for the right time." His voice shook. "So you'd remember where you came from." Nathan took the watch. He held it in both hands. The brass was warm from being pressed against Oliver's chest for hours. "I never forgot, Dad," Nathan said. "I just took too long to come back." He placed the watch in his breast pocket, against his heart, and wrapped his arms around his father. Oliver held on with everything he had. The lobby erupted, not with words, with applause. Staff, guests, even the valet standing outside in the rain. The sound filled the Grand Belmont from floor to ceiling, echoing off marble and chandeliers and gold leaf columns. For the first time all evening, Oliver Irving smiled. 1 week later, the Grand Belmont was a different place. Not the building. The marble was the same. The chandeliers still hung from the same ceilings. The orchids still sat in the same vases. But something behind the walls had shifted. Something in the way the staff moved, spoke, and looked at the people who walked through the door. Nathan held a press conference in the Grand Belmont Ballroom on a Tuesday morning. 200 journalists, 14 cameras. He stood behind a podium with the Grand Belmont logo behind him and announced the Irving Dignity Initiative, a mandatory training program for all 34 properties covering implicit bias, de-escalation, and guest treatment regardless of appearance, race, or economic status. "What happened to my father was not an isolated incident," Nathan said. "It was a system failure, a culture that rewarded appearances over decency. That changes today." He announced 3 immediate policy changes. First, no guest would ever be asked to leave a lobby for waiting. Second, any staff member who witnessed discriminatory treatment was required, not encouraged, required, to report it, with full whistleblower protection. Third, every Grand Belmont property would install a dedicated guest advocate position, independent of management, with authority to intervene in real time. The press conference lasted 40 minutes. Nathan took every question. He didn't deflect. He didn't minimize. When a reporter asked if he felt responsible for not being closer to his father, Nathan paused for a long time. "Yes," he said, "I do." The security footage from that night, released with Oliver's permission, went viral within hours. 48 million views in the first 3 days. The hashtag #RespectEveryGuest trended in 11 countries. Comment sections filled with stories from people who had been judged by their appearance, turned away from restaurants, ignored in stores, removed from spaces where they had every right to be. Derek Whitfield was terminated with cause. His employment record was flagged. A federal civil rights investigation was opened based on a pattern of complaints from former employees and guests. Complaints that had been filed and ignored for years. 3 other staff members at different Grand Belmont locations came forward with similar stories. Derek's name became a verb on social media. "Don't be a Derek" showed up on t-shirts and coffee mugs within a week. Victoria Sloan deleted her social media accounts after her original video, the one she had posted mocking Oliver, was reposted with the full context. The comments were not kind. Her permanent ban from the Grand Belmont chain became a news story of its own. She issued a public apology through a lawyer. It was 3 sentences long and convinced no one. Grant Pearson's investigation concluded with a formal reprimand and mandatory retraining. He was transferred to a non-guest-facing role. In his statement, he said, "I followed an order I should have refused. I'll carry that for the rest of my career." Cassandra Holt was confirmed as general manager of the Grand Belmont flagship, the youngest in the chain's history. Her first act was to rewrite the front desk protocol. The new first line read, "Every person who enters this lobby is a guest, no exceptions." Tommy Wells started the management training program the following month. Nathan personally wrote his recommendation letter. It was 1 paragraph long. This young man brought a cup of tea to a stranger in the rain when his job told him not to. That's leadership. Everything else can be taught. And Oliver Irving moved into Nathan's home, not because he needed to be taken care of, although Nathan insisted. Not because his house was too small, although it was, but because Nathan asked him to. Because Nathan said, "I missed too many years, Dad. I'm not missing anymore." Oliver kept his routine. He woke early, he made coffee, he sat in the kitchen, a bigger kitchen now, with better light and a faucet that didn't drip, and waited for Nathan to come downstairs. Most mornings, Nathan did. Some mornings he was already there, reading the paper, a cup of coffee waiting for his father on the table. The pocket watch sat on Nathan's nightstand. Every night, before he turned off the light, he wound it. The second hand swept its tiny circle, still ticking, still counting, still holding on. The chair across from Oliver was no longer empty. 6 months later, Oliver Irving walked into the Grand Belmont lobby. He wore the same brown shoes, repaired now, polished, but the same ones. He walked past the front desk. Cassandra smiled at him. "Good morning, Mr. Irving." He nodded. He sat down in the leather armchair by the fireplace, the same chair Nathan had led him to that night, and waited. Nathan came through the door 10 minutes later, carrying 2 coffees. He handed one to his father. They sat together, watching the lobby move around them. Guests checked in. Staff greeted them by name. A bellhop, Tommy Wells, now in a manager's blazer, held the door for a woman and her elderly mother, offering to carry their bags. Oliver sipped his coffee. He looked at his son. "This is a good place, Nathan." Nathan smiled. "It is now." If you saw an old man being thrown out into the rain, would you step in or stay silent? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story hit you the way it hit me, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it today. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This story is fiction, but being judged before you speak? A room full of people who could help, but don't? That's real. That happens every day. So don't be a Derek. Don't be a Victoria. Be a Tommy. Be the one who brings the tea.